Hello everybody, my name is Mr. Hunter and I'm going to talk you through the process of selecting your options, something that will be happening for all of you over the course of the next month or so. The options that you pick may have some impact on career paths that you choose in the future. As well as this, the options that you pick will definitely influence the curriculum that you experience at school over the course of the next 2 years. And some of you may have some choices to make which may be guided by people other than just you and your parents, but also guided by us here at school. Let me talk you through how your options affect your career path. Soon you will be embarking on what we call Key Stage 4. This is broadly split into 2 options for you. You'll be studying either GCSEs or BTECs and nationals. In turn, that will lead to some form of further education. This might be academic, like A-levels. It might be applied, like BTECs, or it might be vocational, which is generally speaking apprenticeships these days. One of the key things to understand is that just because you go down one of these routes now, it really does not necessarily impact on your higher education. So that's things like universities and level 4 apprenticeships, or your employment. All of these routes can potentially give you access to all of the different routes into higher education and employment. Just because you pick a BTEC now does not mean you won't be able to study A-levels and go to university. Similarly, just because you pick a GCSE now does not mean you can't apply for an apprenticeship later. What will your curriculum look like? You will have the core, which are compulsory exam courses. These are parts of the course that are required by the government. We can't change them, and I'm afraid you are unable to drop them. So these are things like English, maths, and science. You will still have to study these. You can pick up to 4 other exam courses, and these are specialist subjects that you will study at either GCSE or BTEC or CNAT level. In addition, you will also still have core PE, which you'll have even if you pick PE GCSE, citizenship, also known as PSHE or sitcom. You'll have work experience, and you'll have other extracurricular activities that we offer. Let's take a closer look at the core. Everybody at school will do English language, English literature, maths GCSE, and one of either double science, which is where you get 2 GCSEs in science, but you still study biology, chemistry, and physics, or triple science, which is where you get 3 GCSEs in science, a separate one for each of biology, chemistry, and physics. As I say, this is core and compulsory and is not an option. What is an option is this, specialist subjects. You'll get to pick from about 20 courses to do 4 things. Subjects will be selected from 4 different blocks, and I'll be showing you those in a minute. Those are blocks A, B, C, and D. You must pick a subject from each of those blocks, and you must pick a backup from that block. The more variety you put in, the more likely you are to get your first or second choices. Finally, some students will be invited onto our alternative curriculum path. These students will study either vocational studies, study support, or EAL, and they will already have been contacted and talked to by the inclusion department. Here are the blocks that I was talking about earlier. You can see that in the first block, labeled 10A, there are several choices: art, media studies, sport, religious studies, history, geography, French, And separately at the bottom, study support. Study support is not open to everybody. It's one of the things where, as I said, you'll be directly contacted if we think that it would suit you. What you would need to do is pick one subject from the 10A block that you think would suit you really well. You also need to pick a backup. So you need to select something in that block that you would be prepared to do if you weren't allocated your first choice subject. You would need to repeat this process for each of the columns, 10A, 10B, 10C, 10D. There are a few subjects which very closely overlap, and in these cases, you cannot do both of them. You cannot do both economics and business studies. They very closely overlap, so we don't allow it. You cannot do PE and sport, because again, they closely overlap, so we do not allow it. Finally, you cannot do graphics and product design, because again, they closely overlap, but also in this case, they're actually two parts of one GCSE. So if you were allowed to select both, you'd only actually get one GCSE out of it. Some subjects require particular skills, often mathematical abilities. We therefore ask that students selecting computer science have an anticipated grade of a 5 in maths. Students selecting economics have an anticipated grade of a 5 in maths. And that students selecting music must already play an instrument to a reasonable standard or be able to sing to a reasonable standard. So, for example, they might have lessons in this instrument or have singing lessons. Here at Netherhall, we want, as much as possible, you to have the options that will suit you best and suit your aspirations for the future best. The process of selecting options is a conversation between the school, students, and parents. It is not all on you, the student, and nor is it just down to your parents to pick for you, and it certainly isn't up to us, the school, to select for you. However, all three of us, the school, students, and parents, will need to have input into this to make sure that you have the best solution for you. To help you with this, from after half term, you will have the opportunity to have a conversation with your tutor about what you have selected. These we call guidance interviews and serve two purposes. Firstly, to make sure that you have really considered the options that you're picking and that they fit within our framework. So you've definitely selected something in each column and you've definitely got a backup. The other purpose is to make sure that you haven't made any mistakes in the process and that you're aware of all of the possibilities that you have. As part of this process, it is necessary for us, the school, to double check that the things you have selected match. Sometimes, unfortunately, it is necessary for us to refuse certain requests. For example, if you pick to do music, but you don't play an instrument, we would have to refuse that request. And there may be other reasons. We will make sure that we are in contact and are clear with you about our reasons for refusing a choice. It is also important that you realise at this stage that not everybody will get all 4 of their first choices. In practice, almost everybody will get 3 out of 4 of their first choice and 1 of their second choices. The reason for this is that we simply do not have enough space for some subjects. A good example is food. Each food classroom only has enough equipment for about 20 students. Therefore, if we get more than 20 students selecting food in one block, some people will have to be disappointed. What we do is we try and spread this out as much as possible so that everybody gets 3 out of 4 of their first choices, rather than some people getting all of their choices and some people only getting 3 or even 2 of them. So you do need to put just as much thought into your second choices as into your first. You need to make sure that you'd be happy with them, because you may well find that you don't get your first choice in every column. Finally, it is very unlikely but possible that some of the courses will not attract enough students. So not enough people will sign up for it. If we don't get a certain number of students signing up for a subject, then we will pull that subject, we will not run it. And those students who did sign up to it will be reallocated to other areas. This is simply because we cannot run a subject if it has too small a number of students. You may have noticed when I showed you the specialist subject columns that some subjects appeared in green. These subjects are the EBAC subjects. This is a measure produced by the government of particular types of GCSE that the government deems to be particularly academic. We expect that most students will take an EBAC subject. That is to say that they will take one of history, geography, French, German, or computer science. However, we are aware that there are some students who will not take the EBAC, but we expect that the vast majority will. And in previous years, this has been around the 90% mark. Some of you will be interested in getting the full EBAC qualification. And in order to do that, you need to take both a language and a humanity defined for this purposes as history, geography, or computer science. So if you are interested in attaining the full EBAC qualification, then you need to make sure that you pick both one of French and German and one of history, geography, or computer science. This tends to indicate, or is intended to indicate, a particular aspiration to appear academic. How will this process unfold? At the moment, you're watching the Year 9 assembly on the process. We would normally do this in the atrium hall, but this year we recorded it and sent it out to you. Tomorrow will be released to you a series of activities about this process, which you can do at home in the equivalent of tutor time. On the 1st of February, we will release a new subjects assembly. This will run you through certain subjects like health and social care, business, economics, and media that you don't study in year 7, 8, and 9, and they'll tell you what they're all about. Over the course of that week, there will then be drop-in sessions for new subjects, where you can talk to the teachers of those subjects and find out more about them if you would like to. On the 11th of February is the Year 9 Parents' Evening. On that day, there will also be recordings of this presentation sent to all parents, and the opportunity for parents to ask questions directly of me and other people who run the options process. At the same time, the full options booklet containing information about each of the subjects and a slightly more detailed timeline will be released. After the February half term, your form tutor will contact you to discuss your options and to make sure that you've got the relevant form filled out correctly. On the 8th of March, we ask that you have submitted your subject request form to us so that we are able to process it in time to get the timetable up and running for next year. Throughout this process, there are lots of people who can help you. Form tutors and mentors should be your first port of call. You should go to them if you have problems. After them, your SAL, maybe your school achievement leader, will be able to help. And subject teachers and faculty leaders will be able to help with making particular decisions about options. Myself, Mr. Hunter, or Mr. Wilson and Mr. Carlson are good people to talk to about the options process and also about careers, particularly Mr. Carlson. Mrs. Parker, Ms. Walsh, and Ms. Kirby are all good people to talk to about EAL, study support, or the vocational program. Mrs. Simpson, our careers advisor, can offer guidance if you want a longer term perspective. And of course, and perhaps most importantly, your own family and friends will be able to guide you through the process. If you have any more questions, please do not hesitate to get in contact with me, Mr. Hunter.